It was a crime that shocked the quiet town of Aldershot, a tale of betrayal, forbidden love, and a brutal murder that would end with a public execution. This is the tragic and chilling story of George Clark and the murder of Annie Vaughn. Before the murder that rocked the town, Aldershot had a proud history, one deeply intertwined with the British military. Situated in Hampshire, Aldershot was known as the home of the British Army. Its transformation into a military hub began in the mid-19th century, when the government purchased land in the area to establish a permanent military camp. The town quickly expanded as soldiers, their families, and workers moved in to support the growing military presence. By the 1880s, Aldershot was bustling with activity. Rows of barracks housed thousands of soldiers, and the sound of military drills echoed through the town. Local businesses flourished as the town catered to the needs of the military community. Public houses like the Prince Albert became gathering places for both soldiers and locals. But beneath this facade of order and discipline, darker stories brewed behind closed doors. George Clark was a 42-year-old former tailor and Army pensioner. He had served 22 years in the British Army, earning 2 Afghan campaign medals. After retiring, he gave up his trade as a bootmaker and, in September of 1887, took over the Prince Albert Public House in Northtown, Aldershot, with his wife and 2 children. Also living with them was Annie Vaughn, his 18-year-old stepdaughter. Clark was known to be a troubled man. He had a history of violent behavior toward his wife, and behind closed doors, there was a dark secret. For 2 years, Clark had been having an affair with Annie, a secret that would eventually lead to tragedy. In early February 1888, Annie told Clark that she intended to marry another man. Clark disapproved, but Annie was firm in her decision. The tension in the household reached a boiling point on the night of February 5, 1888. In the early hours of February 6th, Clark got out of bed and went downstairs to get a drink. But instead of returning to his room, he entered Annie's bedroom, where she was sleeping with her younger siblings. What happened next was truly horrific. Clark took a razor and savagely cut Annie's throat, so deeply that her head was nearly severed from her body. One of Annie's sisters woke up and witnessed the gruesome scene. Annie tried to rise but collapsed, blood pouring from the wound. Clark stood over her, razor in hand. Realizing something was wrong, Clark's wife went to Annie's room, but Clark tried to follow her. She managed to lock the door against him. When she saw Annie's lifeless body, Mrs. Clark screamed for help out of the window. Neighbors rushed to the scene, but Clark had already fled the house. He didn't get far. Clark was quickly captured, brought before the police court, and formally charged with murder. At his trial at Winchester Assizes, Clark was found guilty of Annie's murder. Mr. Justice Fields sentenced him to death. Clark showed no emotion when the verdict was delivered. On March 27, 1888, Clark was led to the scaffold at Winchester Prison. Executioner James Barry prepared him for the drop. Clark, who had shown penitence since his conviction, remained calm. He had received the sacrament the day before and submitted to his pinioning without tremor. Barry gave him a drop of 6 feet, and death was said to be instantaneous. Clark's body was cut down after hanging for an hour. Only 3 reporters were allowed to witness the execution. Following his conviction, Clark withdrew earlier statements, where he had tried to tarnish Annie's reputation, admitting that his accusations were false. In a letter to his wife, he wrote, "You need not fret about poor Annie, for she was innocent as a child just born. What I said was to vex you, and I have been sorry for it ever since. I intend to take the stain off her character by publishing this in the newspapers." He signed it, "Your loving husband, George Clark," and added a postscript, "I hope God will look after the children and you." Annie Vaughn was well respected in the local community. Her murder left the town of Aldershot in shock. The crime was seen as one of the most brutal and cold-blooded in the area's history. Clark's last moments were described as calm, but the legacy of his crime remains a chilling reminder of the dark secrets that can lurk behind closed doors. Annie Maria, Vaughan was laid to rest in St. Michael the Archangel churchyard in Aldershot, Hampshire. Her grave remains a solemn reminder of the tragic end to a young life. Annie was only 18 years old when her life was taken. Despite the tragedy, her memory lives on in Aldershot's history. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true crime stories. And remember, behind every headline, there's a human story.